Hello and welcome to my opinion archive, and welcome to part 3 of my Star Wars series where I talk about the Sith Order. This is going to be the last part of this series. In the last episode of this series we talked about the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Rule of Two, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Rule of One, or Darth Krayt's Galactic Empire. This video is probably not going to be as long as some of the other episodes in the series because I'm only going to talk about one version of the Sith Order, and there isn't as much info about this version of the Sith Empire, at least I couldn't find it, as other versions of the Sith Order. As in the other videos, all of this information is going to be legends, which means that it isn't going to have an impact on any of the movies Disney are releasing, but I hope you'll still find it interesting. The Rule of One is a Sith philosophy created by Darth Krayt. He was once a Jedi called Azeroth Head, which, by the way, he's a very interesting character, so I would highly suggest you look into him as a character. He has a very interesting story, but I'm not going to talk about it in this video because this is about the Sith Order and not him as a person. Darth Krayt created his own philosophy on how the Sith Order should work, and he created his empire after Luke Skywalker's death in Legends, meaning this story takes place a long time after any of the movies. His philosophy, which was known as the Rule of One, was considered very controversial, very heretical by Sith of the past. He discussed his ideas with the holocrons of past Sith Lords, and if you don't know what a holocron is, it's a device that makes a holographic projection of a Sith or a Jedi with that person's thoughts and memories and their personality, meaning it wasn't directly the old Sith, but it was a representation of them. And many of these old Sith considered his version of the Sith Empire basically wrong and a disgrace to the Sith Order and the Sith's history. Some of the reasons why these ancient Sith considered Darth Krayt's Rule of One so different and so bad was that it introduced the idea of obedience to the Sith. The Sith were no longer supposed to be this order of people who fought for themselves. They were going to be obedient to their Sith Lord, which was Darth Krayt in this case. They were going to follow his orders. They weren't going to fight for themselves or become stronger. They were going to fight for their master. Darth Krayt's idea with this notion of obedience was that the Sith Order would now be able to have a lot of Sith and a lot of numbers without suffering from the problem of previous Sith Orders, which were infighting. They would now be able to fight the Jedi not through manipulation, but in direct warfare without fearing that the Sith would kill one another, because they weren't supposed to be focusing on personal power. They were supposed to serve the leader of the Sith Order. That's why it's called the Rule of One. There's only one true Dark Lord, and that is in this case. The problem I see with this notion of putting obedience into the Sith Order is that it doesn't really fit with the way the Sith and the dark side work. The dark side drives on emotions and ambitions and willingness to become more powerful, and it really doesn't work very well with being obedient. It's very hard to follow your passions, to be ambitious, and to want to become more powerful if you're just supposed to follow orders. It really contradicts the whole way of the dark side. You ask people to follow their emotions, but you don't want to become power hungry. You don't want to seek more power. I think that's really a bit flawed in the way he tried to implement it. But it did actually work for him to an extent. And I'm going to go into a bit of history about this order. What happened was that he had his great advisor, Darth Warlock III, and this man was actually quite obedient to the new Rule of One. He really liked Darth Krayt and wanted to support his dream for the Empire. But the problem was that Darth Krayt was really, really sick, and he had devoted a lot of time to trying to find a cure. So the Darth Warlock III found this sort of loophole in the rule of one, which was they were supposed to be obedient to his master, of course, and his master had a dream for the Empire. So when his master became really weak, and again, there's a lot of more history to this, I'm just telling the broad strokes of it, he decided to kill him to preserve this dream that Darth Krayt had created for the Empire. And that's the problem with the Sith. They are following the dark side, and they are always thinking about themselves. So they would, even if they are obedient, they can find loopholes. So you can't really escape the nature of the dark side. But I think that's different from this version of the Sith Order and other versions of the Sith Order is that what Darth Warlock III had to do in order to assume power over the Sith Order was that he had to lie to the rest of the Sith because they were so obedient to Darth Krayt. He pretended that Darth Krayt had gone into hibernation to fight off his disease, which is a thing he have done in the past. Again, there's a lot of background to this character I'm not going into, so please research him for yourself. He's really interesting. So he had to lie to the rest of the Sith Order, saying to them, okay, Darth Krayt has gone into hibernation once more, so I'm assuming control. He couldn't just take the position of Dark Lord. He couldn't become the leader. And that's very different because in the many past Sith Orders, if you killed the Master, you would become the Master. And this leads into another problem I see with the Rule of One, is that if the leader of the Sith Empire doesn't work for the good of the Sith Empire, for instance, only work for his own self-interests, and treats his obedient followers as just pawns that can be killed, or if this leader falls weak, become weak somehow, either starts doubting the way of the dark side, or becomes poisoned, or sick, or something, then there isn't really a safety net, if you can call it that, in this Sith Empire. There isn't a way for someone to go and take control, and that was the entire idea in many Sith orders, was that the strong should rule. So that's why they had all this infighting, because if you could kill someone, then you were stronger, then you were supposed to take control. And of course, the infighting is a problem with orders in the past, but this one doesn't really have any replacement. And I think it's because Darth Krayt never suspected to die. He created this order to be obedient to him. I don't think he suspected this order to have any as a Sith Lord than himself. Now I'm going to talk about some specific things that this Rule of One has as a part of its power structure. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. The first one I don't like is that Sith students has to kill their masters. I realize this is a big part of the Sith way, and I really like it as a concept to distinguish them from the Jedi, but it doesn't really work very well as a way of making a functioning, should we call it, society, because the younger students, of course, have to get powerful enough to kill their masters to prove their worth, but it means that you lose out on their masters. Their masters die, and they can't be used anymore, meaning you don't build up more numbers, you just replace them. And you replace them for no other reason than the student has to prove themselves. I think it would be possible to make perhaps challenge. It's like the Jedi Order has. It has trials you have to go through, something like that. So you could keep the Sith Masters if you are going to war with the Jedi, so you could have more people to fight the Jedi, more experienced people. I think this is a thing that's kept the Sith Order down in many of its versions, is that simply Sith kill one another, so they lose out on knowledge and numbers and advantages and experiences. One thing I do like in the power structure of the Rule of One is that Darth Krayt had Sith who had a specific job. It's sort of like what I said in the previous video about specializations. This isn't as specialized because there's only a few people who can hold these positions. But, for instance, Darth Warlock III had the position of Lore Master. His job was to research ancient Sith knowledge and powers and rituals and make sure that it was catalogued so that there would be access to them, so that the Darth Krayt's empire would know about these things, which makes for a very good thing because they focus on exploring knowledge and gathering knowledge and become more powerful through it. Another position you could have in Darth Krayt's empire is the position of Hand, which is basically an enforcer for Darth Krayt, sort of like the way Darth Vader works for Darth Sidious, except these people aren't the apprentices of Darth Krayt, but they work in the same role. They secure Darth Krayt's empire. They defeat the greatest threats to this empire. I think it's good to have this position. There's 2 of them, so they can be at multiple places at once. They can work together, and they can secure this empire he wants to build. I think it's a very good thing to have people who are focused directly on this, who are the best of the best, who are trained to deal with the greatest threats this empire faces. Now, my last point in this discussion is going to be about how Darth Krayt created his empire. And what he did is that he took power from an already previously existing civilization in the galaxy, known as the Fell Empire. There's a lot of background story to this empire, but to my best way of summing it up, it's the remaining parts of Darth Sidious' empire. Again, there's a lot of background story to this, but these people basically have a culture that is like the way Darth Sidious, his empire, existed. It has moths, it has stormtroopers, all of that stuff, but it's not controlled by a Dark Lord of the Sith. It's not controlled by a dark side force user or anything like that. Again, I really encourage you to look this up to explore this. I find the Fell Empire really interesting, but I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I'm just going to tell you that it existed and that it sort of worked like Darth Sidious' empire. What Darth Krayt did was that he killed their emperor and took the throne for himself. Then he took over their soldiers and basically used it as a way to take over the galaxy, meaning he didn't create his own empire, so to speak. He took an already previously existing one. And this creates a big problem because he didn't kill the actual emperor. He killed a body double, a decoy. So what happened was that there were still people who were loyal to their emperor, and they were willing to work with him because of their loyalty to the emperor, and they didn't really have any reason to like Darth Krayt. So he had a lot of disloyal soldiers who were doing rebellion against him, who fought with their emperor, who fought to free themselves from Darth Krayt, which really makes a big problem for his empire because, unlike Darth Sidious's, where a lot of people are loyal to him to an extent, and sees him as the legitimate ruler of the empire, there were members of the Fell Empire who didn't see Darth Krayt as their legitimate ruler, and this creates a lot of problems when you don't have the loyalty of your soldiers. So this was the last thing I had to say about Darth Krayt's galactic empire. I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope you found this series interesting. It's my first attempt at making a series, and it's a little bit different from what I usually do, so I hope you liked it. I hope you will consider subscribing and watching some of my other videos. As always, this has been my opinion archive, and thank you for watching this video.